So today is our guest Felix Macintosh. Welcome, Felix.
Hi, Erno. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again. It's been a while. We worked together in a mastermind group at Coachdotme, and I thought it would be really fun to invite you. You are outside the usual suspects of coaches that we have in the Coachdotme because you are not like coaching in business a lot at the moment. And for people who are wondering, you don't have a photo background on your Zoom or something. This is the actual place that you are sitting, right? This is your studio.
It's my studio in North London. It's a little recording studio. It's actually not a little recording studio. It's slightly bigger than my flat, but it's a funny recording studio because it's in the basement of a house, and the people who built the house were they made music for TV, so they built a proper studio in their basement, and the woman who bought it, who now lives upstairs, just had a recording studio. So I come and rent her basement.
Oh
It's
wow!
all my gear, but it's her studio. So it's a
Right,
funny arrangement.
right. And I saw because I looked at the website. I saw how you talk about how accessible the studio is for people because it had like a small staircase and everything, and it's not easy to get into. So if you have disabilities, it won't be easy to get to the studio. But other than that, it sounds like a beautiful studio that you're having right there.
It is. I work with a lot of disabled artists, and I have done over the years. So I feel very embarrassed that I don't. It's my studio is so inaccessible. However, I can always go to other people's houses with my laptop and my location recording gear. So
That solves a lot of problems. So you started out as as a recording engineer, producer, workshop facilitator, and so on at another studio.
I've worked at a couple of studios. Yes, I
Oh,
have.
okay, even just more than one.
Yeah.
And but you already have your own studio since 2008.
Uh-huh.
So how many musicians did you see in that time that recorded with you?
Oh,
That sounds like a long
it
time. A lot
is.
of
It's a lot of people. It's a huge number of people. Um, do you know what? I've got no idea. I've got stacks of CDs that people have recorded,
yeah.
and I was also running a lot of meetups here, so even more people have come by and done small gigs and met each other. And I'm always seeing people. I saw two people. They'd gone on tour together in Hamburg, and they met here over a beer. So it's really funny. It's a big load of people and a load of projects. Too many to mention. I just got this album. This is the latest release from one of my clients. I'm very excited about this.
Wow.
So anyway, it's good. People come in and they're a bit shy and they go out and they make albums. So it's all good.
And I think it's just beautiful. I get a lot of books because I do like a book podcast, and so I receive books from publishers. And I think it's similar to what you do, right? You get all these albums of the people that recorded into your studio. It's so beautiful to get this art from people, this finished product in the end.
Well, sometimes I have to buy them, and I do feel a bit fed up. I do think people should come by and go, this is the thing that we made together.
I agree. They should do that. I think it should be like in a condition when they record with you, like the
Very
final
good
product.
point. It will be. It will be from now on. But also because so much stuff is digital, and I'm a big fan of tangible. I like things that you can touch, and it's funny because both me and I did co-produce this album, but it's really nice to have vinyl. But both me and the artist don't actually own record players. I've got one of those Crosby ones, but I wouldn't scratch this up on that. So we're hoping it sounds as nice as it looks.
I have a record player actually. I do. So I love LPs.
So do I. I just have to rub them up.
So I'm just thinking about. Do you have any idea of how many people recorded their music in your studio until so far?
Quite.
A guess.
Oh, I don't know. 100, a couple of hundred. I don't know. And then also the studio I worked at before then shed loads and shed loads and shed loads, and I start to think about it, and it's just a lot would describe it, I think, really.
And in general, what is it that you do when people do record? Because you say you're a producer, but what is it that you do as a
Well,
producer, for example?
really depends. I have a fabulous jazz artist, and she comes down, and all I do is kind of record her record her musicians, because she knows what she wants. Other people come in and they really want some help or support, and it's also partly where the coaching started as well. Is actually, I mean, it is a producer's job anyway, is to support somebody's artistic vision and try and get the best out of them, and obviously. Coming into a recording studio, already you've got somebody else there and you're in a strange place, and you're supposed to be doing your best possible work and being your most relaxed. So that's part of the gig anyway, is actually to be supporting somebody and trying to get them up to their best possible selves. And then you end up spending a lot of time with people, and then obviously those conversations lead to other things about, their creativity in general and what they're feeling, and all of those things. Hairdresser, coach, recording engineer, it's all the same thing, isn't it?
And is it that you think that, no, so from your experience, from all the artists that you've seen, what is the one thing that stops them from being creative?
Self-talk, probably.
Voice in the head?
Voices in your head, thinking that it's easy for everybody else, thinking that I think all of those things, feeling that they do less work. I get that from the people who do huge amounts of work, that they don't really do enough, or it's not right, or it's not what they should be doing, and you kind of think, well, it kind of is what you're doing. That's what's great. You're doing it, and that's lovely. And then the next thing will be the next thing, and also it's funny, isn't it? It's what you like from what I like from listening to my favourite records is that communication, or my favourite books is that communication, and the bravery of that person writing that thing that's honest, or making a piece of music that's honest. And I make music that is in the underground. My basement is in the underground. I believe in the underground. I don't, mainstream is not really my thing. Pop music and thrillers and shiny stuff is not my thing. I like more authentic, stranger music, books, films.
Well, I've listened to a number of your songs, and it is beautiful. It is. I like it a lot.
I laughed. I'm surprised, and I'm thank you, Ernie. That's really, really nice. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, of course, music is a lot to do with taste, and what you like or not. But this type of music I like it a lot. So it's like you mentioned, underground, but also like kind of like electronic sounds within your pieces. I like it a lot. It's beautiful. Yeah. If you, because you also coach on Coachdotme, I will show people the profile on Coachdotme so they can see what it is. And your one thing that you sell, the packages, make music every day. So what is it that you do? What is a habit? How can you make music a habit?
Well, I think I'm just going to backtrack back and say that people always say to me, oh, it must be easy for you to make music because you're in the studio. And of course, I'm working with other people's music, and I'm working with other people's creativity. And when I get home, quite often, I don't have a strand of creativity left. And I got into that idea of making music every day, habit-based, process-based music. So my personal habit is I have to make a beat on my phone, or a little tune on my phone, and if I've done that, I've made some music. And as we all know, that leads to one thing or another, and that's partly why I was so attracted to Coachdotme in the first place. I just really loved that. And then I did the coach accreditation and met Kendra, and I know that you just recently had Kendra on this, and she's such a inspirational person, and I just really love the whole model of Coachdotme. I have believed in coaching before, but I just particularly love the simplicity and the practicality and the future-based thing of Coachdotme. It's great. Is that what you asked, though? No, I just went off on one. Sorry.
That's good. Yeah, because I wonder is for and you do that now. You create one tone, one piece of thing on your phone.
It's the least. So if
Yeah.
I fail to make music all day, I get my poor partner by. I'll get my phone and start making a beat in bed, and then at least I have. And what's funny, of course, when you do something like that, it completely bypasses any creative, and quite often most of it's rubbish. But when I go through, because I do go through and have a quick listen at the end of every week, often there's just a tiny idea or just something weird that I wouldn't have done if I'd been sitting down with my bass and doing something proper and having a proper session. So it's a great thing as well.
Okay, now I have two ideas I have to remember. So you just mentioned you play bass. That's what instruments do you play?
My main thing is bass, and I program. I program lots of things, lots of software, and I also use hardware because it's become more and more unfashionable in the places I have the musicians and that I personally work amongst. It's kind of very frowned to bring a laptop to a gig because it's too easy, which I think was why the whole modular synthesis has come very into the fore. So you're much better off with a small weird synthesizer or a toy or something, anything that's not a laptop. But I do program, and yeah, that's my main things. I'm a rubbish keyboard player. I'm a rubbish guitarist. I'm a terrible singer.
But program, what does that mean? What do you do then? How do you program music?
You make bits and pieces and sample bits, and like you said, maybe take a sound from nature and then manipulate it with effects and turning things backwards, upside down, chopping them up, combining them. It's all of that. I think as well, talking about I was saying about digital, that unfortunately I'm not the only person who thinks it's interesting to use natural sounds alongside electronic sounds that are already in keyboards.
Right. But I also remember some of the pieces, not yours, but that I see on YouTube, for example, that when they really use like hardware, they have like these huge panels and put wires in there and change the wire, and there's another sound coming out. That's what you do too?
No, I don't do modular.
Right.
It's a very expensive habit to get into, and what I do like is it's very old because it's like Wendy Carlos. It's very old technology. It's great, but you're trying to kind of find a sound that you're always in search of a sound.
Right.
Do you know Daphne Oram, who was one of the people who started it's the BBC Radiophonic Workshop? She was actually the originator of it. So that it's more famously Delia Derbyshire who did the Doctor Who theme. But Daphne Oram used to be able to put two huge recording machines together, but only in the middle of the night, and then make these weird tape loops and stuff and sample things. But then she'd have to put it all back in the morning. And you kind of think, we have these amazing computers. You can have any sound in the world within 2 minutes. Everything's loops and da-da-da. It's so boring to think of her in her kind of 50s frock pushing the huge machines, but it's just lovely. So yeah. No, I'm not going modular though, because it's...
No, but I love the beginning of the synthesizing, trying to create so many weird sounds of clips and small pieces of music and trying to make it into a new record or new song even. So I really like that part. I'm a big fan of Vangelis or those kind of people, just making these weird sound albums, which I'm really fond of. Going back to the habits thing, the other question that I came up with me was, I'm not sure which writer that was, which author it was, but a lot of very good authors produce a lot of content every day. So like they sit from 8 to 1 or to noon. They write for 4, 5, 6 hours in a row, and then they have a break or they stop writing for the day. So they just, because people feel that similar to music, that you have to have like some sort of inspiration to start creating something to be creative, right? On the other hand, these people, they don't do that. They just sit, start typing, and creativity will come. How do you see that with music?
I think that's absolutely. I think it's the only way. It's absolutely the only way. I was just looking. What's the because it's the muse will come, isn't it? If you sit, the muse will come.
Yeah, something like that. Yes.
The muse will find you, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just such a. It's otherwise, and also it's about having a practice, isn't it? And practice always seems such a dull word, but having a practice is just not expecting something to happen, but you're there in the process. And I did a creativity uh, a system with the guy Mike Monday, and his thing was splurging every day, so that you just make a piece of music every day, and good or not, and of course putting some kind of rules into place, like you're only going to use your bass guitar, or you're only going to use, because we live in a world of far too much choice. It's so crazy. And actually, what is always good is an idea, isn't it? It's a key idea, and they don't come all the time, but you have to be putting out lots of rubbish to find the good ideas.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the book. What's it again? The with choice. Because we have so much choice, it really limits it. Because there's so many options. In the end, you just go numb or just don't know what to choose, and you don't do anything, right?
Well, plus also I feel, because I'm pre-internet and pre-computers, and I find it's very tricky when I work with young people as well doing music, and it's confusing for people, because you also can have little samples of loops of drums and guitars and things, and you can combine them together, but actually that's kind of choosing rather than making. I think it's very confusing what is creativity. Plus all those loops are made by master musicians, so then when you do something yourself and it doesn't sound very nice, which it's never going to sound very nice at the beginning, it's very difficult to want to carry on. So it's also how do you get past that bit about being really bad. And it's funny because I think people boredom is becoming more and more fashionable at the moment. And I know I spent a lot of time being bored as a kid, and that totally led to reading and painting and singing and all of those things. Whereas nobody is bored because they all have their phones, and there is no space or time to just get bored and do something else.
Yeah, I was just reading about this book by Hartmut Rosa.
Oh.
Which is also about, I'm not sure if it's boredom, but it is something similar. Hold on, I can find it. If I'm going to my conversations, sorry for people watching. In the meantime, you can see if you have questions.
You always putting me onto good books, so I'm sorry, I'm going to wait for this one.
Yeah, but if you, in the meantime, if you are listening right now in the show, you can ask questions for Felix in the comments on LinkedIn. But it's not working. Hold on.
I was just thinking also, because boredom is also space, and space is something I'm very interested in anyway, because like music is supposed to be the space in between the notes, and I love dub music. That's my my thing is dub, and that's all about kind of space and echoes and reflections.
Music is.
We need more, but we do need more space right now, right?
Right. Interesting. It's intentional slowing down. The book is called. I have of course now the Dutch title, which is "Living in the Time of Speed," something like that. That's not the actual title, but it's something like that. And it's all about slowing down. The whole book. So it's an interesting. It's about resonance, right? That's similar with music. Interesting. And boredom. How do you now create boredom to make your music?
Well, turn your phone off is always good, isn't it? Turn your phone off and just have a bit of space. And then before long, and that's where that practice thing comes into, isn't it? Because before long, if you actually are playing something or beginning to make something, time has passed. I was just thinking, I've just read a book, Time Warrior. Do you know Time Warrior?
No.
It's a crazy book. but his thing is doing things in 3 minutes. So his starting point is so he says you either do 40 things in 2 hours, which is good, or actually that 3 minutes turns into a longer project. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's that starting friction. How can you get past starting friction? And people are always like, my song, my album, my thing. Well, what about just playing a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's because I helped a couple of people write and publish a book.
Wow.
So I think the same thing, right? People think about publishing a book, but the thing is, you just need to write every day, and in the end, you will have a book. But it's not about publishing a book; it's about writing every day. That's the
That's the key. And also,
yeah.
publishing a book sounds like fun, but then when you actually come down to it, it's hugely daunting because it's massive and other people have written really good ones and all of that.
And it's the same with music, probably,
Of
right?
course, utterly.
Yeah.
Utterly. And actually, what I keep thinking is that just in general, kind of doing something or making something just makes you really happy. That's actually the joy of, and if you have something, you've written something or, drawn something badly or whatever, it takes you into that other space, that flow space, which everybody's always banging on about, but it's such a nice space to be. If we could all live and float all the time, I mean, nothing would get done with that. You wouldn't do the washing up wouldn't get done, but everybody would be floating around being like very happy, which is
Well,
good.
what I do, I take walks in the morning, and I have like 4 routes, probably maybe 5 if I would just you know do something different. But normally it's like 4 routes, and so they're always the same. So it's there's not a lot new things to see when I go walking, except for, of course, when it's spring, the grass is growing and everything else. But that's animals I can see. I pick up trash. But other than that, the routes are just the same, right? So it's in the end, it's a very dull thing to do. But because it's so dull, it it slows down the mind for me. So it creates space. And for me, it's important to think about long term, to think about, so what is it that I want to accomplish, and what do I need to do today to attribute to that? And that's why I need those walks outside in nature. I can even understand people who do work on treadmills, right? Because for me, that's just it, that's that's no use. That doesn't really help me at all. I can walk, but it doesn't help my brain to do that. What is it that you do except for shutting
I,
down the phone?
I go outside, but
Right.
anywhere near a tree, it's always a good thing, isn't it? I don't know quite what it is, but it's yeah. And I spend a lot of time, like I said, I'm in a basement, and I really love light and being outside. So luckily we have a really big park, Richmond Park, which has deers and stuff in it in London, and that's my favourite place to go. Just go and spend the day down there. It's just really nice. I take a book, but I don't actually read. Just go and be. Yeah, well, there you see, we're back to space, aren't we? We're back to space. Yeah.
If you think about because the one thing you say is you help them to be the brightest, boldest, baddest creative themselves, right? Um, how do you help them to in the studio to do the work? Because I can imagine if you have been creating music on your own in your own room in your own house without any audience, and then you go to a studio to record it, and there is audience.
I think it depends how experienced the people are, and I work with very experienced musicians, and I work with very inexperienced musicians, and I think there's a couple of things that are useful for people, that they've actually paid and that the clock is ticking, even though I'm incredibly kind of kind about that. But people will sit and chat, and actually you have to kind of move them into motion and take them through a process and all of that. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's. I think possibly once somebody's actually got to a studio, they're in a good state anyway. I kind of want more. I'm thinking a lot at the moment about people who um, used to do music a long time ago and have given it up for some reason, because I think that's a really common. And when I run my meetups, people would come all the time, and then they'd sort of say halfway through the evening, they'd come up to me and go, "I shouldn't really be here. I'm not really a musician." And I'd kind of like, "Sorry, what does that mean?" And then it would turn out that they either had wanted to or they used to. And it's just kind of really funny. You just sort of encourage somebody a little bit and go like, well, do you still have your guitar? And then they turn up a couple of months later and go, oh yeah, do you want to come to my gig? So it's kind of funny that, again, it's just really good for you. I think people kind of worry that it's going to take time away from things that they're doing anyway, but it, it's good to be creative. It's good to have to be thinking, isn't it, about something that's not just kind of prosaic life and or expecting other people to do your art for you. You can do your own arts.
Right. And why did you? Because you mentioned you talk about these musicians who'd stop for a while, and you mentioned before when we talked before we went live about when you stopped when you were 28. Why did you stop then? What was the reason for you?
I stopped because I just had a little deal, a little record deal, and then the drummer left, and so the deal went down. I thought, I'm 28, I'm too old for music, and then I stopped, and that's when I started going and working as a sound engineer, because I thought I'll just, and then there's something funny about music. It always comes back and finds you. I think that's true for everybody, for painters and writers, is that you kind of, it's all over, but somehow it nags away at you. And I had a funny thing at that point, that a track I'd done a really long time before got put into a film, and then randomly I got invited to go on tour with a ska band to Europe. And the guy that ran the studio very kindly gave me a couple of weeks off to go and do that. So it's really funny. I had literally given it all up, but I have given it up 2 or 3 times since then. So every time it comes back, or I find music again, I'm happier. And I about 4 years ago, I started again after a year of giving up, and I noticed that I was being incredibly grumpy with all my clients because I wasn't doing music. So, I thought I'd best sort this out and go and do some music again.
Well, if it makes you happy, I think it's a good remedy, right?
But like you're saying, it doesn't always make you happy, does it? Sometimes it feels like a slog, and sometimes, but it's something it does for your brain is very good. And I think sports people are the same. It seems like it's just that other way of thinking, or other.
Yeah. For me, that's like running. It sounds like running.
Well, you run and you write, so
yeah.
So there's a couple of strains there.
Yeah. It's just 2 more things I want to talk about before we let go. Is you mentioned also that you work with children who have learning difficulties, and we just talked about shyness for people in the studio, and you say, well, they don't, they've paid, and so on. How is this? How do you do this with these children? Because I can imagine
they're not children. They're 11 people from 11 till 25.
Okay.
And
young people,
and I think that's the thing, isn't it? Because people being the word. What's nice there, I was saying to you as well, that I personally really didn't go well at school. When ideally there, when I'm doing a longer term thing like a summer project or something like that, the young people don't have to be in the room. So if they don't want to be there, they don't have to be there. And it's kind of funny because it also means I can chuck people out the room and kind of like, well, maybe you should go somewhere else. So it's funny, if I chuck somebody out enough, they will eventually come back and insist on doing some music, which is really nice. Because I think a lot of us, just school and work and stuff, can kind of really put you off doing creative projects. And what I really like there as well is that there are a few things I have to say. Like, we're a funded council project, so no, you can't actually swear. I don't mind if you swear, but you can't actually swear in this song or whatever. But letting somebody actually not letting, but facilitating somebody to say what they want and try and, find a way for them to do it. So they want to play rock guitar or make beats or whatever. I will try to find what it is that they want to do. And people just come up with brilliant stuff. It's so fun. It's really, really, really fun.
Okay, in the background you hear some noise, which is an alarm, but we have to deal with
It's
that.
my landlady going in and out of her house.
Yeah, so we have to deal with that. And I can see that part about creativity and school. And I remember always this TED talk by Ken Robinson.
I love Ken Robinson. Why isn't he just in charge of everything? Then everybody would want to go to school.
I think that is a true point, right? So what he made
He loves
was
education. I love education. It's just school's a bit rubbish.
Yeah, the system, how it works, is just beating the creativity out of the children, out of the young people.
Well, Seth Godin always said it's just about making factory fodder, isn't it? It's just
yeah, I agree.
I'm sure that's not true, and it is a little bit biased, though.
It is partly true because it originates from the current system originates from before World War II, where they wanted obedient people for the army, right? So that's how this all started. So at least that's the story that I heard. I say it's true, but that's the story that I've learned. Anyway, the other thing that I want to talk to you about shortly is, so what do you think, and when we talked about how school is creating creativity, killing creativity, and when you go from school to a job and you also are, you have to work in a certain way. There's processes that you have to follow. There's procedures. There's meetings and everything. How do you think that creativity could be, and music maybe even, could play a role in bringing creativity back into the workplace? And how do you think that, there's a lot of questions, but how do you think that companies will help that to bring creativity back into the workplace?
I think that there is a culture of bringing in artists and into the workplace, isn't there? There's a little bit of that going on. I think that because there's a team building thing, isn't it? I think that for some people that makes them absolutely go, oh no, I'm going to be forced into doing all of that. So I'm not sure that that's sorry, Erno. I think it's a good idea. Maybe people should just have a little bit more time to themselves and not be working all the time. I think I'm not sure if you what would happen if, I don't know. I think it could cause trouble, but probably in a good way. Because also there's the thing about creatively thinking about your work and creatively thinking, and I guess it depends. You're working with leaders, building more modern leaders to actually encourage more humane working practices, and that's a slightly different thing as well, isn't it? Actually encouraging people to be creative in that way, and possibly facilitating some things could be really, really good. And I remember Gwen talking about people really feeling that they had to make a choice between having their family and building their career, and how actually that's a really, really wrong thing for society as a whole. So yes, in yours and Gwen's ideal world, I would be loving to go into a room in somebody's corporate headquarters at lunchtime and be there with some nice synths and musical toys for people just to come and play with, rather than going to Pret a Manger.
And I think it could be, like you just mentioned, it could be really bad. It could cause trouble. And I think that's what we need at the moment.
Yes. Lovely.
No, I truly believe that. I think it is important that we have this trouble, because the way that the corporations are working, the way that they are focused on just making more money, on just growing every year, that's good for economics. It's not good for well-being, right? And I believe that we should go for well-being. Since the last 2-3 decades, well-being is actually going down. We are still growing in economics, even it's going slower for people than they want, but well-being is going down, and that's not the life that we are looking for, right? So please, Felix, bring creativity back into schools and into companies, because I believe that we need this trouble. We need these people to wake up so that they can build better companies, right? So they can build companies that people really want to work, but
Really want to
also,
work in not beanbags, but actual messy thinking.
yeah. So please do that for us, next to all the work that you're already doing with musicians, right? Well, for me, it's been wonderful to talk to you again
So fun.
after a while that we've missed each other. And for me, also, it was wonderful to see if we can make a connection between your world and the world that I live in, like with companies. And I think in the final part we did. Thank you for that, Felix.
Lovely to talk to you, Anna, as always. And thank you for another wonderful book recommendation.
Yes. And if you want to watch this, and Felix is going to send me the books that she mentioned, and hopefully also the names that she mentioned, because I don't know these people. And I will put the names and anything that I get from you into the blog, which will be live next Monday. And if you want to watch and keep on watching us for the next week, every Friday we are here on LinkedIn Live, 4 p.m. Central European Time and 9 a.m. Central Time. So that's it for us. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.